Yo, what's up, boys? So I wanted to make a video about some of the more nuanced and niche and advanced tips that I've discovered in this game. I'm at about 200 hours game time now, and this game is just the gift that keeps on giving. I'm still having a hell of a lot of fun with it. Every day I learn something new, and so yeah, a lot of these tips are not going to be things that you're going to find in your average beginner's guide. They're going to be more for advanced players. So hopefully you'll learn something that you didn't already know. And let's get started. So our first tip is about the mobile command trucks. I think in theory everyone knows how these things work, but in practice I don't really see a lot of people using them. I definitely don't use them as much as we probably should. And they are absolute game changers, something that can absolutely change the tide of battle. So it's honestly really simple. You spawn one at a heavy vehicle depot, you go around the back, you fill the thing with supplies, and it doesn't actually work in Game Master, but when you come around to the back, you'll see an option to essentially load it with supplies, and then when you find a nice tree covered area where nearby a base, you can't put it in a base, but you can put it really close to one. But you want to put it in a really secluded area, not high traffic, something that it's going to take the enemies a while to find. The more hidden, the better. But come around to the back and look at this, and you'll see a prompt to deploy the mobile command unit. So as long as there's supplies in it, the entire team can spawn on this thing. So definitely can get some cool things done. So for our next advanced tip, we have the radio backpack. And I find this thing is so underutilized. In my 200 hours of playing this game, I've probably only used this thing like twice. And not because I put it down, but because I was in a squad where someone else knew how to use it and they put it down. But it's got a couple uses. First and foremost, when you are out of range, when you are in an area on the map where you can't cap bases because you're no longer near a radio tower that's in range, you'll also find that you'll lose radio connection, and a message will come up on your screen that says HQ radio signal lost. So you can now no longer communicate with your squad, and you can no longer communicate with the platoon. But you'll notice that this radio has its own channel selection, and you can swap between your squad and the platoon. And this thing, it basically acts as a radio extender. So you'll be able to communicate behind enemy lines. So that's its first main function. And everyone knows its second main function, but you essentially come over here, you take it off your back, put it on the ground, look at it, and select deploy radio. Now, a couple just some advice for best practices. This thing does make noise, obviously, you can hear it. So, and also worth noting, you cannot put this thing in an enemy base. So you've got to be somewhat outside of the base. We are in Montanak. There's the base out there, and we're just roughly outside of the area of the farm. We're in a little barn here. So if you want to put this thing in a bush or something, sort of like the mobile command truck, just out of the view of the enemy, and preferably in like a low traffic area, maybe in an attic, or maybe even like up at the top of that church over there in the town. So it's not easily found. Now if I die, you'll see it is available to me as a spawn beacon. So something worth noting, you can toggle. Hold on. Deployed radio. So you'll see that I do have my saved loadout. You can toggle this thing to spawn with or without saved loadouts. So if I look at this thing, toggle custom loadouts, you'll see now it's disabled. Toggle it again, you'll see it's now enabled, so I can spawn with my custom loadout. And you'll see that I do indeed have my custom loadout. I've got my M16 with the carbine with the red dot and silencer, and I've got my sniper rifle with my fancy little helmet. So that's how that works. Another little piece of advice for this thing, obviously, if you wear this, you lose backpack space. So if you're someone who likes to walk around with tons of grenades and mags out the ass, and maybe you carry a machine gun and you kind of need that extra space to carry your belt magazines, you can put this thing in the back of a truck, and just when you're driving out to the base, keep this thing on you, and maybe have your backpack on you, or vice versa, put your backpack filled with all your goodies into the back of a trunk, and just throw this thing, when you get to your destination, throw this thing down, and then grab your backpack out of the trunk, and that way you sort of have the best of both worlds there. So this is the radio backpack. Definitely underutilized. Definitely going to start using this more myself. Alright, here's a quick one for you guys. So you'll notice that when you run and you stop running, your weapon is lowered. I don't know why the fuck they did this. I guess for role-playing type reasons, but for combat related reasons, this is garbage. So you can actually turn this off, go to settings, go to controls, go to weapon, and then low ready. Just unbind that totally. Get that shit the fuck out of here. Now you'll notice that when I run and I stop running, my weapon is already up, ready to go, ready to fire, centered at the center of my screen. So get that shit out of there. So the next advanced tip is about the construction truck. Super underutilized, but it has a lot of great potential. So I'll show you sort of bird's eye view. This is a little roadblock I've set up just on the north end of Montauk. Obviously this main road is a huge high traffic area. So you can set this stuff up anywhere you can get this truck. You just walk to the back of it, and then you can just, as long as you have supplies, you can start building. So there's tents, there's little checkpoint areas where you can stick AI. You can do a little burlap sandbag walls, machine gun nests, bunkers, various types of roadblocks. Like, you can really get creative here. You can even put down mortar encampments. So these don't necessarily have to only be used at a base. And I'll show you, like, one of the cool things about, like, even like these tents. You can go up on top of these things. And, like, alright, so now you're in a tree. I mean, this one's in a pretty shitty location, but I wanted to show you how you can sort of get yourself into a tree. And, I mean, I'm pretty well hidden from here. Like, if you're coming down the road, like, you're really not going to see me. Another thing is, when you're looking for guys in trees, like, you're usually looking at the base of a tree. You're never really looking up in the tree itself. So another cool thing is, like, if you have a bipod or even with your weapon, you can mount right on the tippy top of this thing. So it's pretty cool. You could definitely get creative here. There's command tents, there are encampments. It's like endless. You can literally create your own little base somewhere, somewhere totally random, anywhere you want, really. I guess where there's flat ground where you can put this stuff. You can get up on top of this one too. So if you're coming down the road, you're really not going to be able to see me up here if I'm laying down. I know my guy just got up, but yeah. So pretty cool. And then these little burlap sandbag walls here too are great, especially these ones with a little hole in it. And you can also fix your gun to this as well. So a couple cool little tips. Get creative with this. The possibilities are literally endless. So this one's picking up where we left off with the construction truck. Again, super underutilized. This just goes to show you how creative you can get with this thing. I've gone ahead and put myself down an LAV and a 50 caliber machine gun attached to the armored vehicle. And I've built myself a little bunker here out of these sandbags, which are really cheap. They don't cost many supplies whatsoever. And you know, these will protect from small arms fire, even a little bit of fragmentation, and give you some coverage. But you know, we're placed up at the top of Tower Entre Deux, and you know, basically this is firing down into the base at Montagnat. And I've got myself these little tents here, just for some aerial coverage. You know, like if a helicopter is going to come over, you're going to be a little bit sheltered. And you know, I mean, this is out in the open just for demonstration purposes for, you know, how you can apply something like this. But if you really wanted to utilize something like this, you know, nearby a bunch of trees or, you know, somewhere where you've got some better coverage, you know, that would probably be the best application for this. But even still, just super cool stuff you can do with this construction truck. Don't sleep on this. Very highly underutilized. So for our next advanced tip, I want to talk about the sniper rifles, an item that everyone uses, but I don't think uses to it's the best of its utility. Most people just kind of shoot from, you know, maybe 200, 300 meters, and that's fine, but these things rip at long range. But very often people aren't taking the time to get set up in a nice sniper nest far away from the base. You know, usually we're just in a tree line a few hundred meters away from the base at most. But you could become a very deadly sniper. I mean, look at that crate far in the distance. I mean, even when I'm zoomed in, I can't see those bodies. If you're in a bush or you're next to a rock or in the midst of a bunch of trees, I mean, you're going to be almost invisible from that distance. So you can definitely be very effective as a long range sniper. And I think the one thing that stops people from doing that is that it's easy to just, you know, not have to sight your rifle when you're close. And I think that's the thing that people struggle with the most. So I'm going to show you both of these sniper rifles, the Soviet and the American sniper rifles, have built-in range finders in the scope. So you don't necessarily, you can take your map and your protractor out, and you can, if you know your location and the location of your target, you can generalize and try to figure out how far your target is. You know, by doing something like this, you know, we know that here's Entre Deux, there's the tower, here's me. You know, each one of these sections here is going to be about 100 meters. So you could do it that way. If you're going to be in a fixed location, sniping at a fixed location, that might work for you. But it's just as easy to use this. Now, the Russian sniper has its own little rangefinder in the bottom left-hand corner. And a little bit of insider knowledge, the character models are 1.7 meters. That's why you see the 1.7 on that bottom line there. 1.7 meters in height. So if you know the height of your target, then you can figure out the distance. So the way this rangefinder works is you're going to put the bottom line at their feet, and you're going to measure the top line with their head. Now this guy's closer than our 200 mark, so we know that this guy's about 100 meters away. So we don't have to do any sighting for this. We're just going to fire away, center mass, boom, he's down. So for these guys, a little bit further, right? So he's further away than 200. He's going to be about 300. So we'll sight our rifle at 300. And we'll rip a couple shots. Always aim for center mass. And he's down. These guys a little bit further out. Roughly 400, I want to say. Maybe somewhere between 450 and 5. So We'll set our rifle for 4, and we'll just aim a little low. 4 did the trick. That guy's just but we'll finish him. Boom, dead. And the same thing for those guys out there, right? Those guys are going to be a little bit trickier to hit. Not quite 700 or 600, right? Probably something closer to 700 for those guys. So we're going to reload. And I'm using tracer rounds just so we can sort of see where our rounds are going. But so this guy was about 700, and these far shots get really tricky to hit just because of all the rifle sway. But that was a hit. You saw right there. He's running. That one went just off to over his right shoulder, his left shoulder there. That one went just over his head. Now when they lay down, they get much harder to hit because they're obviously a smaller target. So we want to aim a little lower. That hit him in the leg there. We're going just behind him, so I think that was a hit right there. I think he's down. Yeah, he's not moving. So that's the Soviet rifle. Now, looking at this, you might think there's no rangefinder, but there is. These little mil dots are going to tell you how far you are from your target. Using the same information that we used before, we know that the AI, or that the character models are about 1.7 meters high. And the distance between the center of your crosshair and that bottom mil dot is 1 meter. So just doing some math, we'll generalize and we'll say that these guys are about 2 meters high. That means with your magnification, you want to put the top of your crosshair, the middle of your crosshair, on his head, and you want that bottom dot to be basically at his midsection. You want to cut his body in half with that bottom dot. So we know these guys are about 350 meters away. So our rifle, this rifle sights at minimum to 300 meters, so we know we don't have to do anything here. We're already at 3 meters, but they're 350, so we want to kind of aim a little bit low. Just aim for the center mass. That's going to give you the best results here. Hit. And that guy's dead. So for these guys a little bit further out, we want to cut them in half. That's about right. So 450. So we're going to go up to 400. Aim for center mass. That was a hit. It's going to make things difficult for us. And he's down. So we'll ignore these guys. We'll jump straight out to these guys, these far guys here. So you notice at 4.5x, our magnification, that's not working for us. So we got to zoom in. We are at 600, and we're not quite at his midsection with that bottom dot. So we want to move in a little bit more. 650, still quite not there, right? 7x seems to be cutting his body in half. So we know 7x, we need to sight to 700 meters. And now we shoot. That's a hit. It's going to be high. That's low. High. It's tough when they're laying down. They're a very small target when they're laying down. I'll wait for that guy to come back up. We'll fuck with this guy. Ooh, he's kind of standing at the side, not the biggest target. That's a hit. That was a hit. He's back up on his feet. That guy's down. Well, boys, that's it for the in-game tips. But before I end the video, I wanted to touch on one conceptual idea or principle that I think will help sort of transform the game a little bit in your head. There's definitely those of us who like to approach this game like a shooter. It definitely has shooter elements at its core, but this game is not, and I think it's really helpful to realize this game is not a shooter first and foremost. This game is a strategy game first and foremost. It's a resource management game, and then it's a shooter game. So if you try to approach this game like Call of Duty and just brute force your way through everything, you're going to find yourself frustrated as much as you find yourself enjoying the process. So I wanted to talk about a quick quote from the Art of War, Sun Tzu's The Art of War. He says that, probably his most famous quote, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting, right? It emphasizes the importance of strategic planning in achieving victory through deception and avoiding direct confrontation whenever possible. So he's suggesting that essentially true mastery lies in outmaneuvering and demoralizing your opponent rather than resorting to brute force. So, utilize strategic thinking, prioritize long-term goals and planning over immediate gains, use deception, use misleading tactics, confuse and weaken your enemy, know your team, know your enemy's team, and know the strengths and weaknesses of both teams. The Lord knows this game, the teams definitely have their pros and cons. So knowing them is crucial. And whenever possible, avoid direct confrontation. Not all the time, but find ways to achieve victory without necessarily engaging in a battle of attrition. This game is a simulator, so really the sky is the limit for how you can approach this game and how you can achieve victories. Victory doesn't have to always mean throwing yourself endlessly at a base, dying 1,000 times, running back 1,000 times, driving back 1,000 times, and dying 1,000 more, all in pursuit to maybe or maybe not take the base you're throwing yourself at. There's definitely other ways to play this game. Go behind enemy lines, sabotage an enemy base, disassemble all their shit, and then just cause chaos, cause confusion, tie them up, make them go back there and have to defend that base and rebuild that base. And just, you can, like with all the other tips in this video, like you can really get creative in this game. So when you start thinking about it that way and you stop thinking about it like a Call of Duty game, I think it's going to open a lot of doors and you're going to enjoy yourself a lot more of the time when you're playing this game. So that's it, guys. Hope you guys found something useful out of this. Hope you learned something new, and I'll see you guys on the battlefield. Peace.